All right, we're live this morning on Krishna Talk, not Krishna Talk, Let's Talk. And Goswami, I believe you prepared a statement you wanted to read and culminate with a question for the opening statement. So we give you the microphone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, you mentioned in the first video that after the disappearance of the Acharya, disciples will differ on what the Guru actually meant on different points of Siddhanta. Srila Sridhara has explained to us the importance of understanding the relative and absolute side of the Guru. And you have often emphasized the importance of understanding what is preaching and what is Siddhanta. You cited the example of His Divine Grace, stating to an audience in India, all businessmen in New York City chant japa.
Yeah, right.
On such an important topic as Jiva-tattva and the seemingly apparent contradictions that Srila Prabhupada said in relation to the issue, it would seem necessary to go to the writings of our previous acharyas to verify which statement he said at the time was in the mood of preaching and what was actual Siddhanta. When there is this type of misunderstanding amongst disciples, what is their recourse?
Somehow or another, your voice broke up right at the end. Sound like something out of a horror movie. Whoa, 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 what is it? Terrible.
Wow.
All right, if you're watching,
Yes,
I hope
it's
you.
still going like that.
Yeah, we beg the devotees, bear with us. We'll try to sort out these problems by getting some better microphones and whatever we can do to try to solve that problem. Okay, so yes, that's an important topic. We kind of touched on that. We mentioned that and you can see practically it's almost natural. Especially taken to the fact that Srila Prabhupada had so many disciples, roughly 5,000, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Misunderstandings between the disciples and what the Guru said, what he meant by what he said, all these kind of things arise. And it doesn't seem to be that there's any we're all going to agree on everything. And in fact, there used to be a statement that says, well, it's kind of like this. The devotees only agree totally on one thing. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after that, there are many disagreements. However, if between any individuals or groups of devotees that want to resolve those differences of understanding, etc., and now we're talking about the Jiva issue, then the answer is always the same. Guru, we go to many things that the Guru has said or written. Sadhu, we go to the devotees. That may be devotees amongst our own ranks. In other words, fellow God brothers or God sisters, as the case may be. And shastra. This is the Guru Sadhu Shastra. This is everything. So in the event that consulting everything that our Guru has said, we find contradictory statements. We do. Prabhupada is saying something, I don't have that quote in front of me right now, but there are plenty of them out there, about the living entities becoming envious of Krishna and falling to this material world. Thus the thinking that, well, how can you become envious of something you haven't seen or you don't know or you're not with, or all this type of kind of thinking results in that. Then there are many such similar statements. Then in the books there's a definitive super opposite statement. The conclusion is, now usually when the conclusion is stated, it means, well, I've said this and I've said that, or I've read this and I've read that, but well, putting all this together, my conclusion means a final statement. In the chapters of Jai and Vijay, is it Jai and Vijay?
Yep.
Yeah, Jai and Vijay. As Srila Prabhupada says, the conclusion is no one falls from Vaikuntha. So a further conclusion would be, well, no one falls from Vaikuntha, no one falls from Goloka. Okay.
Right.
Okay, but here's something which many devotees don't realize. That, okay, you want to examine that a little closer. In fact, okay, let me just go to a minute. There's a book which was published by by a press called the GBC Press. Okay. This book is called Our Original Position. It's also called the Oops book. And in this book, they endeavor to establish unequivocally, that's the word, unequivocally that living entities fell down from not just Vaikuntha, but from Goloka Vrindavan, from the very Leela of Krishna. And in that book, the fall of Jai and Vijay is stated. However, what sometimes we may fail to understand is the various stories in the Puranas, whether it's the fall of Jai and Vijay, or the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, or Vamana, or so many of these Leelas, pastimes, and stories, in Srimad Bhagavatam, those stories are only told in part or in summary part. They are not told in full. So as regards the fall of Jai and Vijay, if one goes to, which Purana now I forget, but when we can find it out later. But when you go to that Purana and read the whole story of Jai and Vijay, where?
Vishnu Purana, I think it is.
Okay, you think Vishnu Purana. Okay, we can check that later. But when you go there and read the whole story of Jai and Vijay, you'll see that they didn't fall at all. They actually prayed to the Lord to send them to the material world so that they could fight with him, because they perceived in the persona of the Lord that he had this power, great power, and that he liked to fight and destroy the demons. But they realized that the demons can never give the Lord a good fight. You see, it's like a professional wrestler. You know, he needs a workout, or a boxer, and all he's got in front of him is his 12-year-old nephew. Well, that's not going to do the job. He needs to have a sparring partner of some status who can throw some punches and really give him a workout. So they pray, Jai and Vijay, they pray to Lord Vishnu that only we, your devotees, have the power to almost match you. So let us go to the material world, let us become demons, and then we'll really give you a fight. So they didn't fall at all. Fall at all. It's a poem, right? They didn't fall at all. All right, so not only, so we have to go to shastra, and we might have to go to further shastra, but particularly, I think Goswami's point there is that we must go to the previous acharyas, and we must go to the further scriptures written by the previous acharyas or by the Lord himself. Otherwise, we just remain quarreling and fighting amongst ourselves. So I know for a fact that in the Hare Krishna movement, in the biggest institutions, there is the institutional conception that the living entities fall, and it is the resolution that if you think otherwise, it is actually not really a law, but it's the resolution of their governing body, that if you think otherwise, well, keep it to yourself. You can only preach the living entities fall. Now, and if you think otherwise, you just keep it to yourself. So, I know for a fact. I know a dozen. I could name them, but I'm not going to name them. But I know a dozen sannyasis or more, and hundreds of devotees in the institute, in that particular institution, that understand that that's not a proper conception, and that the living entities do not fall from the spiritual world. So the institution is stuck in this position where they have a institutionalized false conception, but their own members don't even accept it. So years ago, several sannyasis and a couple of GBCs and gurus came to visit, and we had a little talk in Vrindavan at the Radha Damodar temple, and they asked me, they said, what do you think the spiritual authority the spiritual authority of ISKCON will be in the future. I said, I don't think there'll be a spiritual authority at all. And they were like, what? How can you say that? I said, well, they're not an authority now. What will make them an authority in the future? You disagree on so many things now. Who's the authority? The GBC? Come on, give me a break. You pass a resolution, you don't even follow it yourself. Everybody does what they want. Everybody thinks what they want, but a little bit of framework is there. Don't go too far, you get kicked out. So that's all great. That is not an authority. So you're not an authority now. When are you going to become an authority? So it was kind of a challenge, That's kind of the nature of a preacher, and certainly that's a bit of my nature.
But that is a fact, because they'll have books, and they'll say, you shouldn't read this book. Nobody in our institution should read this book. And as soon as they make that announcement, everybody thinks, why not? And they start reading the book.
Yeah, right. We used to make the joke, the best way to distribute the books is to put a little thing that says banned by the GBC, and then everybody wants it, Well, not everybody. There are also people who are just, that's what they said, that's what they do. But when you make a rule and don't follow it yourself, that's not an acharya, that's a hypocrite.
Right.
Okay. And so many of the rules are made, but they're not followed. For example, there's a law that says if you listen to a tape, read a transcribe, associate with, go to, blah, 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 any source of hearing about Krishna from outside the institution, you will be disqualified from whatever your post is, and if you don't desist in 6 months, you will be excommunicated, and they use the English term excommunicated, which means to be severed from your relationship with God. That's pretty bold. Well, at the same time, the leaders are going all over the place, listening to this sahaji and that sahaji, and going here and going there, and reading bona fide books, sometimes bona fide, sometimes unbona fide books. But if some little guy pops up somewhere and says, wow, I read this book called Sri Guru and His Grace, and I'm fired up, and wow, what do you think of this? They just like, whammo, the boot comes down. All right, since our last, since the last video, we've only made 2. This is our 3rd video. We got some interesting questions that came in via WhatsApp. One of them was posted on the YouTube channel, Let's Talk. Rather an extensive question. I've got that here on my phone. I got this here on my phone. I had it. Where'd it go? And as I said before, anybody who has a question, we may entertain your question or your statement at the next video. But we will not mention anybody's name unless the person says, hey, it's all right, you can mention my name if you want to. So I'm not going to mention this person's name, but I think on the YouTube channel, his name and everything is there because he makes the comment. So it's there. And he addresses it, dear Maharajas, etc. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, and he has some appreciation there. He several things here. First he says, well, thank you for everything, and I plan to tune in for further discussions. And then he makes this point, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, 2nd chapter, verse 117. So I've got that here handy. I'm going to read that, and I think everybody's familiar with that verse. And this is a verse, chapter 2, Adi Lila, verse 117. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Now he doesn't mention here in his comment the next verse, but I'm going to go ahead and read that also. By such conclusive studies, I know the glories of Lord Chaitanya. Only by knowing these glories can one become strong and fixed in attachment to him. All right, so he makes this point, and I think it's a good one to keep in mind, that controversy isn't a bad thing. But motive is important in controversy also. So let me go on. He says, read down here. He says he appreciated the point that we made about Kundali in Orion, and how the path of loyalty, he says, to Prabhupada can actually be a deviation. Now that was interesting. I might mention that this devotee is, I'm pretty sure, he is what they call second generation devotee. He's an initiated disciple of somebody, I think. I don't recognize him as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Doesn't look old enough to be, but maybe he is. I'm not sure, but I think he's second generation disciple. He said also he appreciates the quote that unfortunately may be prophetic. And that was the quote that ISKCON appears cracked at the foundation and could become an upper sampradaya in the future. So, I wanted to remind us, I got to get away from this mentioning the name of any particular institution. It's just kind of old habit, I guess. But the many defects or upasiddhantas that are out there in the Vaishnava world today are not just limited to that particular institution. They're spread far and wide. So I wanted to refer to it more as the Hare Krishna movement and get away from referring to that particular institution. But sometimes it's hard to do that. He said also he wanted to hear more about the relative and absolute considerations of the Guru, position of the Guru in terms of relative and absolute, and how to understand the statements of an Acharya according to time, place, and circumstance. He says, lastly, I would like to make a request for a topic of discussion. And he says that he's researching this topic and he's writing something. And that is, his question is, what is aparadha? And he said the reason is that for some example, some may challenge that your let's talk, in other words, these video presentations that we're making, these discussions are offensive because they don't understand. He says some may think they're offensive because they don't understand that disagreeing or debating spiritual subjects is not necessarily offensive. And he says that questioning the GBC, questioning them is or any authority is not offensive. I could add questioning the Guru is not offensive. Questioning senior devotees, he says, it's not offensive. Of course, intention is a factor as well. That's a given. Okay, that's a given. In other words, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one should approach a bona fide spiritual master, inquire submissively. So, challenges, well, that doesn't. The whole point of a question or an inquiry is to attract and bring down the truth. And if it's simply a hateful, filled with anger, frustration, with envy, with greed, if it's that type of an inquiry, then it's not going to bring down the truth, although the truthful answer may be shouted back at someone. That's not the way that's not the way it's done. So I wanted to give a brief answer to his question. It's a big topic, aparadha. I once I asked a senior godbrother of ours in Mayapur, and I asked him, is there a connection, what do you think? There's a connection between aparadha and Srimati Radharani. between aparadha and Radharani? He said, no connection. I was quite surprised. Actually, it was kind of a loaded question. Maybe it wasn't even fair. But this book had just come out. Where is it? Yes, The Heart of Krishna. And this book had just been published that very month. And the books had just arrived in Mayapur. And this book was written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Puri Goswami Maharaj. And you might have noticed picture here. And so in the very beginning, the introduction of this book, entitled The Heart of Krishna, he writes something here, and I want to read this paragraph, and it's an answer to what is an aparadha. So this is the deeper meaning of what is an aparadha. Aparadha meaning offense. Of course, there are 10 offenses to the holy name, 10 aparadhas. But they all come under the title of aparadha. Okay? And Srila Puri Maharaj writes here, excuse me, he says, the etymological development of the word aparadha is radhat, arthat, radhanat, apagata. Please excuse my poor pronunciations. Which means to be distanced from worship. Offenses committed at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and devotees distance one from devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So, an aparadha means that which distances oneself from worship, that which distances oneself from devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Then he continues, but in a higher sense, it means to be removed from the service of Srimati Radharani, of Sri Radha. To be removed from the service of Radharani. So, I was actually surprised, although my question was indeed loaded, but I was surprised that the senior devotee that I was talking to could not recognize that aparadha, look at the spelling, A-P-A-R-A-D-H-A, aparadha. That just the very sound of it should say, yes, what is that, But it didn't ring any bells for that particular devotee. All divine service to Krishna is being conducted under her direction. To offend her servitors is to make one unfit for her divine service. The whole aim of Krishna consciousness is Radha Dasya. The divine service of Sri Radha. And offenses at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas make one unfit for such service. So, if the devotee who asked that question, that's a very concise summary of what is aparadha. So, I would suggest to that devotee, try to get yourself a copy, look it up online, where is it? Try to get yourself a copy of The Heart of Krishna by Srila Bhaktivinoda Puri Goswami Maharaj. Fantastic book. That's the opening statement. Get ready for 100 and some pages of amazing Gaudiya-siddhanta.
I remember there's another definition of aparadha. I think it's in the Amar Kosha. Apagato radho yasmatiti aparadha, which means generally the understanding amongst the non-devotees, means the grammarians and so on, is that which makes affection disappear. But here, if we expect the word radho to mean Srimati Radharani, it's something which makes Radharani disappear, and she's the goddess of devotion. She's Bhakti Devi, so that's telling.
Yes, exactly. That makes what is bhakti without affection? It's not bhakti. So even that driest Amar Kosh, Sanskrit dictionary, literary translation of the word is there's no getting around it. Yeah. And it's amazing that I don't know if it's still practiced by everyone today, but at the time of Harinam initiation, almost exclusively all the time. It seemed that Srila Prabhupada would mention or even give a lecture on the 10 offenses.
Mm-hmm.
Because you cannot continue with the chanting of the holy name successfully and at the same time be making offenses to the holy name. Yeah. All right. Was there something else you were going to read or mention today, Giri?
You mentioned about a section from Srila Sridhar's Golden Volcano, and he was talking about what is humility?
Mm-hmm.
Remember you were asking about that?
Yeah. Did you find that quote?
Yeah, I found the quote.
Well, read it to us.
Yeah. Humility must be adjusted or modified in its practical application. Once, when a Hare Krishna temple was attacked, a gun was used by the devotees to defend the temple. Later, there was a complaint amongst the local people. They said, "Oh, they are humble, they are tolerant. Why have they crossed the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree? They can't be devotees." So many complaints were coming to me, means to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. But I defended them by saying, no, they have done rightly. Not to a man.
You're breaking up. We can't hear you at all.
Is it?
Well, now it's okay. It must be the way you speak or something. Try that again.
From the beginning?
Well, yeah, keep it going, yeah.
Okay. Humility must be adjusted or modified in its practical application. Once when a Hare Krishna temple was attacked, a gun was used by the devotees to defend the temple. Later, there was a complaint amongst the local people. They said, "Oh, they are humble, they are tolerant. Why had they crossed the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree? They can't be devotees." So many complaints were coming to me, but I defended them by saying, no, they have done rightly. The instruction to be humble than a blade of grass means one should be humble to the devotee, not to a madman.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's referring to that attack on the Mayapur temple, Chandradoya Mandir, many years ago. Mm-hmm. Also, there's a Prabhupada said kind of a thing that I heard many, many years ago. Can't really verify it here right now, but the Prabhupada said was, well, the devotee said, this is in Los Angeles, Prabhupada said, Prabhupada, what would you do if the demons, if they attacked the temple? Prabhupada said, I would kill them all. So, humility means to be submissive to the Vaishnava. To Guru, to Vaishnava. And I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. I thought of it too early before we started, so I couldn't find it. But there is a statement by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. It's either in the folio or it's in one of the books or both or whatever. I couldn't find it. But he says that aparadha means to stand against the will of the Vaishnava. So humility means to accept the will of the Vaishnava. And an aparadha means to be against, to go against the will of the Vaishnava. And of course the simplest understanding of Vaishnava aparadha, which is usually accepted by everyone, the hati, what's it called? Hati
mata.
Hati mata, it's like it sounds. The elephant offense, and also mata sounds like mata. It almost sounds like the mother of all offenses. But it's actually not mother, it's the elephant. Hati mata, is to be envious of the devotees who are spreading the glories of the Sankirtan movement all over the world or anywhere. To be envious of them. So, devoid of envy, a question is not offensive. It's not offensive to question, you see. But there are certain things that should not be questioned. It's the Vaishnava etiquette. how to question, when to question. Like we get a lot. Something wrong with my eyes this morning. We get a lot of questions that they're just not very inspiring, and a lot of times we joke about it, but we write our own questions, and then write articles based on those questions because to make a question worthwhile answering, that sometimes takes a bit of Krishna consciousness. Also, for example, you won't find hardly anywhere at the end of a class where Srila Prabhupada says, "Are there any questions?" Although we do that, and many preachers around the world, they give a class, they ask for questions. Srila Prabhupada hardly ever asked for questions because the questions usually were pretty ridiculous. Why you have a shaved head? Prabhupada said, better a cool head than cool legs. The questions, Srimad Bhagavatam is like what? Questions by Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Parikshit, to Sukadev Goswami.
Right.
He's a highly qualified person to ask the questions. There's the book, Srila Prabhupada's book, Perfect Questions and Perfect Answers. But usually it was stupid questions and perfect answers. People would just ask ridiculous questions. So we get a lot of questions that are very hard to answer. Not in the sense that they're difficult. It's just that they're just not inspiring. Questions should be inspiring. Of course, a person may have a real doubt and say, "Well, I don't know. What about this?" But the best questions come from devotees who are themselves making progress in Krishna consciousness. So they can ask the best questions. All right, so a couple other things I wanted to mention today. One of them was that we mentioned about book changes, and I told briefly about the Brahma Samhita and how Srila Prabhupada had criticized this, the Brahma Samhita had been changed after the disappearance of Bhakti-siddhanta, and I explained a little bit about that, and then we briefly mentioned, a lot of book changes going on in the books of Srila Prabhupada, original books, so much so that it's become a huge controversy. And I recently heard, I'm not too sure, but I did hear from a friend in Vrindavan that there was even a court case now. He called it a class action court case filed by a group of devotees against the BBTI, I believe it is, BBT International, for having changed the Prabhupada's books. And, at first when I heard about book changes, I thought, whoa, whatever, come on. They're just changing. I thought, well, there's no need to change anything as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, what are they changing? A few commas, hyphens, capital letters. What are they changing? I thought, what is this? I'm not paying attention to it. And then it was pointed out to me sometime, I think about a year and a half ago, that there are significant changes that actually change the meaning of what His Divine Grace had initially said. And it was like, wow, I was shocked. And I was shown 2 or 3 things, and I was pretty shocked about that. Then I was informed that there's a website. What's it called? It's called...
I think it's Book Change. Well, there's 2 websites, Book Changes, and there's Guru-tattva's website, I think, called As It Is, I think it's called.
No, it's As It Was.
As It Was, yeah, As It Was.
Because As It Is now is different than As It Was.
Right.
So I was aware, yesterday I became aware of As It Was. And so I went to that website and I looked at it, and I was very happy to see there. Because what I saw there. The website, if you guys are watching, you can look it up. It's called As It Was. That's, I think, asitwas.com. That's it. So it's run by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. His name is Guru-tattva. Guru-tattva has been a friend of mine and a friend of Goswami's for pretty much 3 or 4 decades, as long as we can remember. And Garuda, I don't know exactly now I'll know shortly, but his degree, he got his PhD at Harvard. And at present, he's a professor at, is that Virginia State University, or which university is it? Do you know?
Newport, I think it's Newport News University.
Okay, I'll find out the detail on that. So, he's very qualified in academics, and he is a frequently lectures at the Smithsonian Institute. He also has a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, other books, many articles. He's a very Krishna conscious intellectual in today's world, and he is not mainstream affiliated with any religious institution, etc., etc. He's affiliated with the university and whatnot. So I encourage the devotees who are maybe listening to this broadcast to go to asitwas.com and check out what's being done there. And so I got in touch with Garuda yesterday, and I'm due to speak to him in a couple of hours via Skype. And I've invited him to come on to Let's Talk here with us and explain to us what's the purpose behind asitwas.com. What's happening in the realm of the book changes and why. Well, whatever. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but why and what is his opinion and so forth. And so I think that's going to be very, very interesting. So I'm going to speak with him today at around 12 o'clock his time, and he's in East Coast of the United States, and set up a time, and maybe even tomorrow, then have him on as a guest and let him speak to us, because he seems to be deeply involved in this issue of why the necessity of changing Srila Prabhupada's original books. So rather than put words in his mouth or say something that's not correct, I'm not going to say anything right now other than from my side, I think it was not necessary and potentially destructive in the long term. So, but we'll see if we can fix the time and he comes on and he can talk to us about that. So I was happy to see some people outside our community chiming in, subscribing to the YouTube channel, asking questions, making comments, and so we'll just keep going with that. Any comments for today?
I went to the site as it was, as you recommended yesterday, and went through it all entirely. Actually, it's very very interesting to say the least. I can't help but encourage everybody to do it. It's interesting. It's disturbing. It's
disturbing. Disturbing.
Yeah, disturbing in the sense of what he points out in the changes and whatnot. And he also they're coming to some conclusions. Anyway, he'll talk about that when he comes. But it's worth going to. It's very, very interesting.
Okay.
Maybe we can post the URL, because it's not asitwas.com, it's bhagavad-gita-wixsite.com.
Yeah, it's a complicated URL.
Yeah. So we can post this at the bottom of
Facebook. You can send me that URL, and we can post that in the comments here on the Facebook Live. And
sure.
Then I can copy that and I can paste that in the description when I put this today's video over onto Let's Talk YouTube channel.
Sure.
So, well, we haven't been talking very long today. I seem to be a little out of wind. That's rare, right? But I think let's try to continue a few more minutes here. It's 39 minutes, almost 40 minutes. So, somebody say something.
Were there more questions?
There were. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Let me get back to that. So one of the ladies, one of the matas, Vaishnavis in our community, I guess it's all right to mention her name, dear Lalita Mata. Let me see if I can get that up here on my phone just in a second. You wrote in a couple of questions here this morning. I think the questions were, they weren't questions like, oh, I don't know if you could answer this question. I think her questions were, there are 3 or 4 here. I'm going to kind of lump them together, and maybe we can discuss that. They were to stimulate a topic possibly for the benefit of others, which is also a good thing to do. I'm just going to read here what she has to say, and then Giri and Goswami, I'll let you begin the conversation here. She says, question, you state to not be society conscious. Okay, so she's saying, well, if I'm a leader of a particular big organization, then I might ask, well, then for a beginner, where to go for the truth? If there is no society, and only chaos, how can a beginner apply his or her faith? Isn't it true that an organized society helps them in the beginning? Then they can make up their mind later on? Well, I'm going to stop. I want to say something about this. I say, absolutely. Societies are necessary for preachers in order to get the word out there. She's talking about, yes, again, talking about ISKCON. Okay, ISKCON. I once said to a sannyasi godbrother, I said, if someone dies chanting the name ISKCON, they don't get any spiritual benefit. He says, what? I said, it's an acronym, man. It doesn't mean anything unless you know what it means. I make this point. In Vrindavan, for almost 35 years, if you wanted a rickshaw, they would just see you in Vrindavan. You're a foreigner, right? When you're walking down the street, the rickshaw wallet goes, Angrezi Mandir, Angrezi Mandir, Angrez Mandir. It means Saib, foreigner, gringo. It means white dudes, foreigners. Nowadays, today, 40-some years later, 40-some years after the temple, Krishna Balaram temple opened in Vrindavan, you're walking down the street, the rickshaw wallet goes, ISKCON, ISKCON, ISKCON. However, they know the names of all the other temples. The rickshaw wallet never sees you walking down the street and says, Krishna Balaram temple? You want to go Krishna Balaram temple? No. It was for decades Angrezi Mandir, and now it's ISKCON, the acronym. And you know what? There's not one of those boys, there's not one of those people, there's practically not a shopkeeper in Vrindavan that can tell you what that acronym means. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So, if the society becomes an international society for society consciousness, then it no longer has its desired effect. It's no, what was the word? Efficacy?
Efficacy.
The desired efficacy is gone. So there's no use of institutions without purpose, you see, without purpose. So society consciousness is not the purpose of the institution. The purpose of that institution or any institution, Gaudiya Mutt or any institution out there today, is the Sankirtan movement, Krishna consciousness, etc., etc. Atma Gyan, knowledge of the personality of Godhead, Bhakti Yoga, etc., etc. It is not for some cloistered goal. So there's no sense in being in any society if it's just about society consciousness. If it's about...
I'm reminded of that letter that Achyutananda wrote to us a long time ago, where he told that he was there when Prabhupada in New York had he'd made ISKCON a legal entity with the lawyers and so on. And Prabhupada said, now ISKCON is a legal entity. But if this becomes an obstacle, then we will disband this and we'll continue chanting Hare Krishna.
Yes, I remember that letter. That was a long time ago. He sent us that letter. Very long time ago. My gosh, that was over 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But now that you've mentioned Achyutananda's name, I think I'll get in touch with him and see if he might be interested to come on and talk with us on Let's Talk. Okay, let me continue with dear Lalita Mata's thing here. So, but just to summarize again, yes, societies are necessary. Srila Prabhupada has also written about that. It's written in one of his purports that these institutions are necessary for preaching, particularly in this modern world. But these institutions do not exist eternally. I mean, Srila Prabhupada did say we'll have our ISKCON in the spiritual world, And I think some people think, there's a special rasa up there somewhere, and when ISKCON devotees go back to Godhead, that's where they go. They go to a particular place in the Goloka Vrindavan village of Krishna. It's like the cows are branded. Special brand. Somehow your voice, Giri, it just breaks up something terrible. Now your face is frozen. I think you're going to have to get a better internet connect. Yours does it more than anybody's. You don't have a good connect. I want you to check into that today. Anyway, let me get back to dear Lalita's question here. He says, so she's suggesting a topic here. Srila Prabhupada came at a very special time in history. Now things have changed tremendously. And please explain the impact of thinking in the past only, not being dynamic in preaching. Yeah, many things have changed. Nothing has changed at the same time. In the sense of the same miseries of the world are there in the past, the same miseries are there today in the world. Relatively, socially speaking, things have changed all around us. And it's the duty of every generation to adjust to those changes, but one has to be careful. I think there's a devotee known to many people. I'm not going to say anything derogatory. I'm going to say something positive, and that is Hridayananda Das Goswami. This is a very intelligent devotee of Srila Prabhupada, one of the older senior members of the Hare Krishna movement. And he has started sometime back, a year or two ago, something which he calls Krishna West. I'm not too sure about everything that Krishna West stands for or would like to do and whatnot, but I have talked to some of the Krishna West Sankirtan devotees here in Mexico about Krishna West, and I told them, hey, I'm not challenging. I just wanted to know what you guys are doing. I mean, I'm Krishna West. So, you don't have to worry about it. So I asked him, what are the programs of Krishna West? Now, first I want to say that I think Krishna West, this is like seeing the time, seeing the situation. Is everybody to be living, what are we after? What do we want people to do? Shave up? Join? Well, yeah, I guess we need people to do that, but do we expect everybody in the world to join? What does it really mean? What are we after? What is the most important thing that we want to achieve through the Sankirtan movement? And, I'll take the liberty here to say on my thinking, it's consciousness. We want to change the consciousness of people. We don't want to change necessarily how they look, how they dress, and so many of their cultural habits or even some of their bad habits. We want to change first how people think, how they see the world, what's an understanding. And if we give them Krishna consciousness, then many of their bad habits will disappear automatically, and so forth. So I thought Yeah, Krishna, in India, we are very, very Krishna Hindu, Krishna East, right? Many of the Swamis, we wore wood shoes, chutters, no shirts, you really do it up with a tilak, 12 places, big tilak, chandan on the forehead, all this kind of stuff, because in India, thumbs up, you see. But you appear like that in the West, it can be a little bit of a put-off, let's say. So, I asked him, and he said, well, Krishna West is kind of like showing that you don't have to have a shaved head to be Krishna conscious. You don't have to have a sika. You don't have to wear a dhoti. And this devotee was in, pants and shirt and everything like that. And I said, yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. I mean, at the time of Srila Prabhupada, book distributors went out. They didn't wear tilak. They didn't have a shaved. What they had a shaved head, it was under a little woolly hat, and they were wearing pant and shirt. The old Gaudiya Mutt calls it suited booted, So I said, yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. I said, but no, what I mean is like, what are your special, what kind of programs? And I was expecting to hear something like, well, we have a radio broadcast or a YouTube broadcast called Krishna West. And there wasn't any of that. So maybe he didn't know that much about Krishna West. I don't know. But you would think that, that would be a smart idea, going to various cultures and whatever they were and adjusting to something. Krishna West, is it just, okay, we're going to have punk rock bands? That's Krishna West. They've had that before. He didn't know very much about it. And so I didn't get any information. But I think the idea in time, place, circumstances, things like Krishna West, depending on what that means, would be a good idea, you see. Now, I remember when we were preaching briefly in Italy, some devotees told me from the Milan temple, this is what they told me, that, we never have pasta. I was like, you're in Italy and you don't have pasta? And they said, no, from back in the time of such and such guru and GBC, that they prohibited the devotees from offering local cuisine to Krishna. So I thought, I don't know how smart an idea that is. But anyway, that's their choice. But, here in Mexico, when I started preaching in Mexico, I told the Mexicano devotees, I said, I don't want to see any Indian cooking around here. And so it was tamales and quesadillas, and tacos, and bacon, and enchiladas, and frijoles, and Mexicano rice. And then, because I wanted to encourage them with their culture. So we're here in Mexico, we're a little bit, Krishna Mexicano. We sometimes put a sombrero on the deity of Mahaprabhu. A turban is Indian, you see, and all this stuff. So, but that everybody may not agree with that, but that's my version of Krishna West, and I have other things that are very Krishna West. Anyway, I thought Krishna West, that sounds good. That's a good idea, but I don't really know what's behind that. Do either of you know anything that's behind Krishna West, that programs, special TV shows? Or?
No.
No. Okay, so we don't really know, so we can't really say. But in general, Mata's question is, time, place, circumstance, should the preaching be sensitive to that? And in the time of, I think Srila Prabhupada gives the example, hogs and dogs that eat stool. Where is a dog in America that eats stool? Or England? When I first read that, I thought, is that a misprint or something? And then another place he's talking about the man who pulls tela. It's like, what the hell is a tela? That's those guys that pull those giant rickshaws with 500 kilos of stuff on them. Those long two-wheeled things that guys pull them in Calcutta. Understand?
Yeah.
That's a tela. So, a preacher today, I'm not saying change that in the books. I think it's great. it shows the time and the experience of the person who's written that. But going forward, say giving a lecture at Harvard University and saying, yeah, the hogs and dogs that eat stool and the man who pulls tailor, people might look at each other like, what did he just say? Please explain, sir. What is tailor? I'll give you an example. Swarup Damodar Swami, bless his soul, was a very good friend of mine. And about 30 years ago, I was helping him, even helping finance his preaching and his BI preaching. And at the same time, I had a preaching center, where the heck was that? Tampa, Florida. And he came there and spent some days with us, and we arranged for him to give a talk at a Unitarian church. So I went with him to the church one Sunday, and he gave a talk at this Unitarian church. And the talk was so irritating to the people there who were total American, they were total Floridians, they were total Southern boys, you know, and they couldn't understand a word he was saying. They couldn't understand his accent. They couldn't, what the heck is he even talking about? And they got visibly, physically agitated by this. And I had to step in at the end of the thing when the head of the church was complaining. He was expressing his frustration. He can't understand what this man is talking about. What does he mean? And it's been so many years, I forget the exact examples that he raised. And then I stepped in. I said, well, let me apologize on his behalf, but he's coming from another culture, which is in another part of the world, and the examples and experiences there, so you please excuse that. So it is very important. Gaudiya Mutt we talk about Krishna West, there was a saying in Gaudiya Mutt called first dress, then address. And this was a saying of Bhakti-siddhanta, and you can look at some of the old pictures that are online of Bhakti-siddhanta and the Gaudiya Mutt in the old days, and you'll see the devotees around him in three-piece suits, black suits, with pocket watches and brass, looks like gold, but it's not gold, it's brass, pocket watches and brass chains, and the shoes of the time, which were, they're called spats, with some kind of overlapping thing on your shoe, leather shoes, black turbans at Mayapur, sitting down at a long table, and all these British people sitting around, ladies with their bonnets, other of his disciples in tweed sports jackets, other disciples in the back wearing the black three-piece suits, and some of his disciples in white turbans and little vests serving the prasadam to the guest, and knife, fork, spoon, everything. Krishna West. I think that picture that I'm referring to was taken in 1933 or something like that. So this idea and what dear Lalita Mata is mentioning here about should there be adjustment in the preaching? Yes, there should, but the adjustment should not spoil the substance. It should not change the substance. Prabhupada wrote a prayer glorifying, I believe it was a Vyasa Puja, glorifying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And in that prayer, he mentioned something to the effect that the same old medicine, but in a new bottle. That's in that famous Adore, Adore Ye All the Blessed Day, sweeter than heaven, sweeter than May. So if you're watching this video, look up that prayer. And he comes to a point in the prayer, in the offering, in the poem, and he mentions that the expertise of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he's taken this eternal message of truth and Krishna consciousness, and he's putting it in a new package. So new packages. Actually, Sripad Govinda Maharaj, disciple of Srila Sridhara Maharaj, once pointed out that the sannyas dress is itself a new package. If you want to get real traditional about the dress of the followers of Sri Rup and Sanatan, it's a kopan. That's it. The very dress, uttariya, dhoti, kurta, even that is an innovative dress. You see, 6 Goswamis, disciples of Mahaprabhu, founders of the modern Vrindavan, their dress was a langoti, kopan, or a little dhoti wrap around the waist that rose just above the knees. You see, which you still see the Babajis of Vrindavan and Govardhan wear today. So even the dress we have today of the Hare Krishnas, it is an innovation for the times. You see. All right, so I'm going to go on a little bit more here. Unless you have something to say, I'm going to look here and.
I was going to say something, Maharaj. You made a nice point. The preaching shouldn't change the substance. So back to this original question about Jiva-tattva and the stand that's taken by many people in the modern Hare Krishna movement about we fell from the spiritual world. Is this an example of their misinterpretation of the preaching, disturbing the substance, actually the real conclusion?
Yes, of course. Because there are contradictory statements by the same person, namely Srila Prabhupada. So, to balance contradictory statements, you have to go to previous acharyas, previous shastra. And there you find the answer. But when Kundali and Satyanarayan did that, the reply was, we don't care what Jiva Goswami says. There you have it. We don't care. We'll just stick with our understanding, which we don't even agree upon about each other, but we outvote you and that. It's just like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And some of the branches of our sampradaya have branched out, like I was pointing out. There are groups in Hawaii that think Lord Brahma became Lord Jesus Christ. They also believe they fell from the spiritual world. And that particular group separated from ISKCON actually during the time of Srila Prabhupada. So get too far away from the fire and you get frostbit. Now what's that mean? Well, that means you have to stay close to home base. Don't get too far out there away from previous authorities. Don't get too far ahead of yourself with your intelligence. Over-intelligence is a word that Srila Prabhupada used, not a lot, but he used it frequently enough to make the point. Don't be over-intelligent. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Don't think that you're the wise guy. He made some very strong statements of how one may think, oh, now I'm better than my guru, etc. So, failing to go to the previous authorities, then people just live with their misconceptions, getting too far away from those authorities. Not really. They named the road in yes. It was Jiva-tattva Maharaj in Mayapur. There had been a flood, and that year the flood rose up, but the road, Bhakti-siddhanta road, we all know that road in Mayapur, long road, raised up at the time. Quite a bit compared to everything else around it. The road stopped the flood, so it wasn't that big a flood. Usually it rises up to that road and then the flood goes over and everybody, all the mutts and Chandidoya Mandir, everybody gets flooded. Well, that year it wasn't such a big flood and the road stopped the flood. So, Jiva-tattva Maharaj wrote Srila Prabhupada.
I think it was Achyutananda.
Was it Achyutananda? Okay, yes. Achyutananda Swami.
Yes.
Somebody there in Mayapur wrote Srila Prabhupada and said that the Bhakti-siddhanta road saved us from the flood. Something to that effect, right? You probably find this in the folio. Those of you out there who have the folio, look it up. And Srila Prabhupada replied by saying, yes, well, I forget exactly how he said it, but he said, yes, Bhakti-siddhanta is always saving us. That was one point. And the next thing he said was, please continue to glorify the parampara. I mean, he was only glorifying the road, but he was making the point. Bhakti-siddhanta is always glorifying us. In other letters, Srila Prabhupada, in the very, very early days, Srila Prabhupada wrote and said, actually, this is Bhakti-siddhanta's movement that is now totally forgotten. This is totally forgotten. It's Prabhupada's movement. Everyone says Prabhupada. Yes, it is, but which Prabhupada? Our Srila Prabhupada said it's Bhakti-siddhanta. His Prabhupada. It's his movement. And then he said, and you can look this up in the folio and you will see it, Prabhupada says, actually you are all his disciples. Of course the Ritviks will maybe blow their stack on this one, but he said, you are his disciples. He has sent you. He has sent you. So everything he's giving credit to his guru. So everything we are giving credit to Prabhupada, but we should not give credit to Prabhupada in a way that takes away the credit from Bhakti-siddhanta. Credit of the credit of the credit, the parampara. And Bhaktivinoda is looking everything towards Gaurkishore and particularly Bhaktivinoda Thakura. So, very important, the previous acharyas. Without them, we become a bastard sampradaya. They are our legitimate guardians. And to ignore them or minimize them is a great mistake. A great mistake. Let me go on here, if I may, with what dear Lalita Mata said. She says, another question. To be a preacher means to be a warrior. Wahoo! And therefore one must be well equipped with the weapon of understanding Guru-tattva. Yes. Would you say that it is dangerous to both the so-called, she says ignorant guru and eventual disciple to not know this topic? What consequences will follow such ignorance? Suicide. I mean, once a person who had recently become authorized to give initiation wrote me and asked, what's the necessity of Harinam initiation? He had disciples, was getting ready to initiate further disciples. He's recently been ordained as a bona fide initiating guru. So I thought, well, that's quite humble to actually, and definitely the guru should know these things. But at the same time, one could challenge, and I did not challenge, but one could challenge, well, whoa, hold the phone right there. You're going to initiate and you don't even know? And now what are you doing? You're asking somebody outside your institution when that's supposed to be prohibited? What's this all about? So anyway, not to make more of an issue of it, but yes, it is about understanding proper conception. But it's a fact. I mean, I said the other day, I have questions that I would like to ask, but I don't know that there's anybody on the planet that can answer them. And I'm not saying that from the point of view of, hey, I'm so advanced I can ask these big questions. It's just that we're talking about the absolute truth, the infinite, and every once in a while there are some questions that come up, and I think, oh, I wish someone would have asked Srila Sridhara Maharaj that question, or Srila Puri Maharaj, because the nature of the question is really kind of requires somebody who's very, very advanced. So what I'm saying is, the guru might not know everything about every tattva, but he shouldn't have a misunderstanding. Like, I don't know trigonometry, but I don't also think that 1 and 1 is 3. All right? So, you should have your basics together, every preacher. Don't send a devotee out there to preach who can't preach, who doesn't know enough to preach to and deliver whatever knowledge of Krishna he's trying to get it right. Get it right. Don't go out there and say, Jayadev Goswami wrote a poem about the 11 avatars. No, get it right. It's called Das Avatar Stotra. Not Gyara Avatar Stotra. I'm just giving an example. Get it right. Don't go out there and tell people there are 12 modes of material nature. No. There are three modes of material nature with unlimited combinations of these three in the waves. A boy came to visit us in Hawaii about 30 years ago, and I had a preaching center outside the main temple there. And somehow or another, we didn't know this person, but he was coming. Someone said he was coming. Anyway, we went and picked him up at the airport. So we picked him up at the airport, and we're driving him back to our preaching center, and I said, so where are you from? He said, Goloka Vrindavan. I looked in the rearview mirror and I said, no, you're not. No, you're not. So he wasn't an initiated devotee. He was a bhakta. Where are you from? Goloka Vrindavan. No, and when I said, no, you're not, I mean, he was like, I'm not. I mean, where are you from? Arkansas, Florida, New York, L.A., Northern Cal, Portland. Where are you from? You know, Goloka. I'm from Goloka. I said, no, you're not. So Sridhara Maharaj made the point that we shouldn't send everybody out to preach. And that's kind of been a little bit not mistake, but yeah. You should know what you're going out there. Huh?
That example you just gave about trigonometry, I don't know much about trigonometry, but I thought you were going to say, I don't know much about cosmology, but I know the world isn't flat.
That's good. Well, that's going to be a topic for Let's Talk. Hey, all you flat-tards out there want to tune in, you know, as we expose that the world's not flat. Sorry about that. We're going to talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think, dear Lolita, boy, she's got a lot to say. She says, another question. Okay, this is the last one. How can a newcomer know how to discriminate who is Guru, what is Guru? Should he read Sri Guru and His Grace or Gaudiya-siddhanta, or would it be clearer for him or her to read Chaitanya Charitamrita? Is there even a simpler book or for total beginners? Well, no. I don't know any simpler book. Bhagavad Gita, try to approach a spiritual master who knows the truth, etc., etc. The onus is really, it's not on the beginner. You see? I mean, I say this often. My God, I didn't really have to sort myself out through hundreds of gurus and try to figure out which one was bona fide. At that time, there was only one preacher of Krishna consciousness in the world, at least in the Western world. No Sahajiyas have made it over here yet. There were a few Hindu gurus. There had been Satchidananda Swami, some Hindu guru, and had an ashram. There had been Yogananda. There had been a few Hatha yoga teachers and things like that. But even all them together, there wasn't a whole bunch of different people to choose from, you know, and it's just kind of like, that we were very, very fortunate during that time. Nowadays, somebody interested in Krishna looks out there and there's over 100. There's over 100 initiating gurus out there in the world today. So one has to, how do I find a guru and all this kind of stuff? Well, that's your headache. That's not my headache. Well, what is my headache, and what should be the headache of all those gurus out there, is to make sure that you're presenting real Krishna consciousness, not society consciousness. Don't worry about if they join your temple. Don't worry about if they join your society. Don't be worried about that. This isn't about who dies with the most disciples wins. You know, you seen that bumper sticker? Who dies with the most toys wins? This is not a game we are playing. It doesn't matter. You may preach to somebody for 2 years nonstop, and they end up joining somebody else's temple or taking initiation from somebody else. What, is that your loss? Is that your loss? What's your goal as a preacher? What's your goal as a guru? And after you have disciples, what do? Just fly off, take the dakshina, go somewhere? You have a responsibility from the beginning to give them genuine and real Krishna consciousness, not jaded Krishna consciousness. not society consciousness in the name of Krishna consciousness. If that happens, then the journey of the aspiring disciple, which he's inquiring about, how will they find their guru? Well, that will be very, very easy. Krishna will guide them very, very easily. Once, when a guru fell down, and this has happened many times in that particular organization, which we sometimes speak about, they came to Srila Maharaj and they asked what should be done. And he suggested that they turn their prayers towards Lord Nityananda, who is the preliminary principle of the Guru-tattva, and that they ask for his guidance and his shelter. Whereas their authorities were telling them, you better get reinitiated really quick or you're going to fall down. And so some of these people quickly took a reinitiation. Then that guru fell down after some time. And again, they were in the same position. And again, they took initiation. And do you realize that there are some people in this world that have been through more than 3 gurus, initiating gurus? And if they wanted to look outside that institution or look in other books, they were saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. You see. So anyway, there are many examples over the last decades and decades of preaching about Krishna not really being the proper preaching about Krishna consciousness. So when that happens, well, then the aspiring disciples, yes, according to, well, there's something within them, you see also. And Krishna will reciprocate that. But if all the aspiring people can find is a Krishna version of the Abrahamic, Judaic, Christian religions in the name of Krishna, well, there'll be much confusion. And then accepting a guru will just be like, okay, yeah, I need a guru. He's cool. She's cool. I'll take initiation from him, from her, whatever. That's not the meaning. Then don't even bother. Prabhupada said, find that person whom you can surrender to, whom you have faith will take you back to home, back to Godhead. So many people say, I'm doing that. So fine, great. I never like to challenge anyone's faith in their guru. This is a very, very bad thing to do. Challenge another person's faith. I'm not speaking to those people. I'm not trying to influence anybody's faith or anything in an institution. I'm talking to my God brothers. When I make a critical statement, when I make a statement that sounds aggressive or challenging, read it as such. I'm not challenging people's faith in their gurus. I'm challenging my own God brothers. Let's get it right, because it's not right. Let's stop this fooling around. We're not running a game. Let's stop this society conscious nonsense. You preach Krishna consciousness and the devil himself has something to say worth hearing, publish it. Oh, I'll tell you one. Years ago I was approached by the BBT because we have this book. I don't have it right here to show it to you, but it's online. You can see it. It's called In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life by Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada. It is published from an essay that he wrote sometime around 1959 in Vrindavan. So that book was published by us, that book was copyrighted by us, etc., etc. So I received a letter, correspondence from the BBT, and they said that they would like to print this book and distribute it massively around the world. I said, wow, that's really wonderful. You have your whatever you like. You write up the letter of a copyright release, giving you full rights to print this book as much as you want in any language translation, do whatever, distribute it all across the world. They said, no, we don't want a copyright release. We want you to release the copyright. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we want you to just sign off the copyright and give it to us so that we have the rights to print the book. And I said, I said, you know what's happened over the last years? I said, there have been official policies to not sell Narasingha Maharaj or any of his followers, which were a couple of dozen, any of Prabhupada's books. Choke them out. No books. No books of Prabhupada. I said, so, do you guys remember this? I said, this was just like 6 years ago. So now, I'm supposed to give you the copyrights to these books. And then what happens is 2 years, 3 years, or 2 months, or tomorrow, you decide, don't sell him any more Prabhupada books. And I can't even get this book. I said, come on, let's be real here. This is Prabhupada. I don't really own Prabhupada. You don't own Prabhupada either. But we all want to distribute his divine grace to the world. So I'll give you the release letter and you print it and you distribute it, and they turned down the offer. No thank you. They said, we must own it. Okay, that's going to bring me to another discussion another day where we're going to talk about the Radha Damodar court case that ISKCON has filed against the temple of Sri Sri Radha Damodar in Vrindavan, and is suing that temple to try and become the owners of parts of the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And this case is going on now for 12 years. And that's going to be a topic for one of our discussions in the future. It is so terrible to own it. To own it. Yes, there's some dignity in copywriting and all these things. But we are not the owners. Prabhupada said he wasn't even the owner. He said, I didn't write these books. Krishna wrote these books. Actually, many years ago, there was a suggestion by the GBC to copyright the Maha Mantra so that no one else could print it in any book or magazine or anything unless they had a release from the DBT. Go figure. I want to own it. Aham mameti. Everything is me, mine, I. And when you just extend that, Prabhupada says this consciousness, this ahankara in the world, this is extended to family. How many times he's said this in lectures and in his books? Everyone who's watching, look it up. How he's saying this extended false ego of everything is mine, my family, my country, my everything, my society. The only thing you can say properly is my parampara, your parampara, the Gaudiya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaiṣṇava Sampradaya. That is what we all belong to. This institution, that institution, these are just temporary things. There is no ISKCON, there is no Gaudiya Mutt, there is no Krishna Bhakti Ashram group in the spiritual world. These things exist in this world. And there have been many before us. There will be many going forward in the future. And it's the duty of all of these past, present, and future institutions and organizations to spread Krishna consciousness. Not to try and become the owners of anything. We're not the owners of anything. We have to do certain things because laws dictate it. In certain countries we have to register, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do these things. But society consciousness is the greatest enemy of self-realization according to Bhaktivinoda Thakura. The greatest enemy of self-realization according to Bhaktivinoda Thakura is society consciousness. All right, so let's leave it at that for today. And let's talk later, okay? Is that all right? We wrap it up? Let it go?
Yep.
All right. Thanks for watching, all of you out there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
See you tomorrow or soon after. Hare Bol.